We have a lot of resistance related to our concepts and like our discursive thinking. And that, all those concepts and discursiveness, we experience it as a kind of continuity. It appears to us as something very solid, something very independent. We're kind of aware of a multitude of objects, and consciousness is continually seeking out one object or another. It doesn't like to sit still. It doesn't feel grounded unless it is directing itself towards something. So if somebody says, well, relax, we have an idea of like relax, maybe some idea about the body, but it's very, very difficult to relax without having some kind of method. Someone says relax and we go, well, how do I do that? Because we're so fixed on chronic objectification and a tendency to analyze. So in order to relax, now we have to be taught, we need an object. Give me an object to concentrate on. Otherwise, I can't do it. Just something to fix upon. And if we don't have that reference point, then we go, well, how do I do it? So you're given a method, and then as you start to apply that method, then all you start with, you begin to notice that there's this continual process of like labeling. Now this is happening, now that's happening. There's this kind of process of identification, judgment, and a continual attempt to like rebalance our position. There's a kind of like chronic mental noise. Sometimes that noise is really coherent, and sometimes it's just chaotic. And when it's chaotic, then we just feel tension and we get really upset. We develop opinions, we develop biases, and then we develop, so like ideological structures. And we hold tightly to our position. Tensions develop, and the possibility to relax those tensions, it becomes more remote. So the disease of me, of myself as an individual, it becomes the disease of the society. It becomes the disease of the community, of the state, of the country, the whole planet. So it's not uncommon to hear the view that even this current, pandemic that we're suffering with is the result of some kind of provocation. And provocation is always the result of being distracted by our mental cacophony and not taking time out to observe how our own tensions are a contributing factor to that situation. So it's a wonder that this pandemic has like created, forced us into isolation. And that isolation is always going to demand a bit of self-observation, no matter how painful that is. And obviously this situation, this pandemic, it's a real nuisance. It's a source of overwhelming suffering
for many, many people. But on the other hand, it's also a kind of opportunity to actually apply practice, which we've heard and studied, but maybe we didn't have somehow time to do. And maybe there can be some, we can find some positive possibility in all of that, in all that difficulty. So my feeling is like, all of us are wondering, like, where do we go from here? How do we go on? Everybody develops their own idea. I think this, I think that, etc., etc. And it's not so important, really, our ideas. They're just opinions. It seems more important, though, to have a kind of agility that comes from being able to work with uncertainty and a resistance to uncertainty. And developing that agility, we can adapt ourselves to, all kinds of changing circumstances. But that agility is going to require our capacity to relax, our resistance. And in order to relax our resistance, we first have to become aware of it. We have to take note of it in every kind of circumstance, even small things. And we start to notice that it's manifesting, as we spoke earlier, it manifests in our emotions. It manifests in our on this continual chronic conceptual buzz. It manifests karmically. And so we're going to have to do considerable training. It's not going to just come by itself. We can read books and understand the very, very high and sophisticated points of view. They're interesting. They can help us. But ultimately, the work is very, very, it's very down to earth. It's very kind of nuts and bolts. It's like dealing with our own tensions. And it's easy to get, I go around and I do courses on things and I explain a lot of stuff and talk a lot. And I hear other people talk a lot too. And that's all interesting. And it can be useful. But ultimately, if we're going to understand things like what you were talking about earlier, this falling away through knowledge of a spontaneous falling away of all kinds of tension, then we're going to really need to do some work. So it won't happen just, sitting in a comfortable chair and turning on a television, having a drink, and then talking like really interesting ideas.